Hello. Well, it has been quite a week with a new war in the Middle East, which has overshadowed the news of earthquakes, devastating ones, in Afghanistan, Papua New Guinea, Italy, and so on. And that's as well as floods and fires everywhere else. We are in the last days. And then there was Watchtower's wishy-washy annual meeting, in which they very ably demonstrated that you can use the scriptures, you can twist the scriptures to whatever you want to teach. So let's have a look at the war, because other people have looked at Watchtower's annual meeting very ably. The problem with this new war is that God has been invoked. God be praised has been said on several occasions. So is God involved in this war? In the Lord's Prayer, Jesus taught us to honour God's name, to hallow his name, and God's name will be made holy. At one stage or another, God will demonstrate whose side he really is on. So we don't want to be misled. Now that brings me to a few more details about the Antichrist, and I've spoken about this before. But just to add to it, in the first letter of John, chapter 2 and verse 18, John says, "You have heard that Antichrist is coming, so now many Antichrists have come." If you're onto a good thing with misleading people, you're going to find several ways of doing it. So we can look out for many Antichrists, not just one entity. So how do we know? 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 talks about these ones who set themselves up in the seat of God, calling themselves God, or the only true way. And there are many religions that do that. And in verse 9, it says, "The coming of the lawless one is by the activity of Satan, with all power, false signs and wonders, all wicked deception for those who are perishing." And why? Because they refuse to love the truth. Now, talking about these false signs, I looked it up in the commentaries, and Benson had this to say, that such ones would boast of revelations, visions, miracles. They would all be false and applied to support false doctrines. It appeals to people's love of the sensational or the mystical. There's nothing mystical about the teachings of Jesus Christ. We need to love the simple truth that Jesus taught us. Jesus sacrificed so much to come down here to teach us because he loved us. If we stick to his teachings, we will not be misled. So there are some who say they've had visions from angels, or there have been new prophecies, but all of them have done what the book of Revelation tells us not to do. They have added to the scriptures and twisted it for their own ends. We'll stick to Jesus' teachings. Now, whether this war will end in the end of Babylon the Great, it will be interesting to see. Prophecy is interesting in that it tells us what to look out for, but when it's fulfilled, then we get all the details. So what I did this week was I reviewed Revelation chapters 17 to 19, just so that I have all the details in my mind and I can watch as it gets fulfilled. It might be now, it might be later on. We'll see what God has in mind for us. But one thing is certain. God is love, and whatever he does, he will not condone the wicked eventually, and he will have his name hallowed. And we will see that very shortly as these last days come to their end. Thanks for watching, and do take care. God bless you all.